This is a special presentation from Alabama News Network. Making History Today is sponsored by Alabama State University, Alabama Shakespeare Festival, and Willie Durham, State Farm Agent.
Hello, I'm Daryl Hood. Welcome to this WAKA Channel 8 News special, Making History Today. Each year, in honor of Black History Month, we present untold local stories about the people who have worked to make our area a better place for us all. Here's a look at what's coming up. You'll meet a Montgomery man who's traced his family roots all the way back to slavery and has written a book about it. You'll find out about why there's another important local city besides Montgomery and Selma that was pivotal in the civil rights movement. And you'll see Montgomery Church has found a renewed calling to help people, especially in West Montgomery. We begin with a story about a church. The Roman Catholic Church, known as the City of St. Jude, was a beacon to the civil rights movement. Now it's finding a renewed calling to help people in West Montgomery. Reporter Janae Wright shows us more.
And we lost the ability to do a lot of the good that we've been used to doing. And so is this sort of the end of St. Jude?
That very question loomed in the minds of parishioners at St. Jude once the COVID-19 pandemic hit. The city of St. Jude was erected in 1937, but became known worldwide for its pivotal role in the Selma to Montgomery March. In 1965, the church was a safe haven for marchers as they headed to the Capitol.
I was in the 11th grade during the time of the march, and my mother and I, we marched in the march.
At the time when the march was going on, did you realize the significance of the roles you all were playing during that time?
No, I did not, but we were very aware of the danger. You got a chance to be one-on-one with some of those people that you used to see on TV, entertainers and all. Bill Cosby, Harry Belafonte, and there were other white entertainers there, Danny Thomas, Parnell Roberts. Just to see it was an experience. I housed some of the civil rights children, families at my home. All the teachers did. And we were a part of the celebration. I met the stars because they were housed beneath the church. And it was just an experience to see and to be able to participate.
St. Jude played a huge role, not just for the march, but the land was a safe place for all African Americans at a time when they were not welcomed, especially in many parts of the South.
It's the place where the Freedom Riders, many of them were beaten. They were only treated at St. Jude. It's the place where Martin Luther King Jr., when he was living here in Montgomery for that decade, his children were born in our hospital.
Although there is so much history tied to St. Jude, it has recently been disconnected from the community in West Montgomery, a large part due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced the church to close its doors and stop its services it provided to people in need.
It's a sense of loss that you can't recapture because I lost something that I was so used to, and I was hands-on, and I could see them and touch them, and that was not there.
It's easy to blame COVID, but it really did hit us hard in a very particular way. And so we are ready to come back, to bring back a lot of those social services that are so needed to this community.
It was definitely a tough time, obviously. One of the things that was just new to me was having to space out. Couldn't really have physical interaction, hugs, handshakes, and not being able to see a lot of the, older members of the church because, of COVID. So it was a hard time.
But times are changing now. The church is under new leadership with Father Andrew Jones joining the parish in 2021. He plans to bring back many of the services St. Jude provided to the community, providing food and clothing and other social services, carrying on the legacy of the man who founded St. Jude, Father Harold Purcell.
I'm just excited about, Father Jones has so much energy and he wants so much for the people. He's a lot like Father Purcell, you know. He just wants to reach out and just touch people, and it's just wonderful.
Parishioners at St. Jude say the #1 goal is to
Help everybody,
right.
the ones who are in need, whether they are non-Catholics or Catholic. And that's what he's on the road with us trying to do now, and he's doing a great job with it.
I love Father Jones. I love his enthusiasm. I love his energy. It's something that I feel like we've needed here for a while. He's always texting me about ideas. I'm doing the same with what I may feel like would help West Montgomery.
The overall message to the West Montgomery community is
We're back and we're not dead. So
we are here and we are open.
And that was Janae Wright reporting. Father Jones hopes that the church will soon reopen its food and clothing pantries and provide other social services. The church is also open to anyone who would like help. Montgomery and Selma are forever tied to the civil rights struggle of the 1960s. But did you know that Bloody Sunday and the marches didn't actually start in Selma? Reporter George McDonald shows us what other local city played a critical role during that time.
The significance of the role people in Perry County played in the voting rights movement is as undeniable as it is left out or distorted by many people who retell the story of those historic events today.
Nothing that happened in Selma caused the Selma to Montgomery March. Everything that caused the Selma to Montgomery March happened in Marion, Alabama.
The idea for a march to the state capitol came after the death of Jimmy Lee Jackson. Jackson was shot by State Trooper James Bernard Fowler following a mass meeting at Zion Church in support of civil rights leader Reverend James Orange. Della Simpson Maynor of Marion was there that night. At age 14, she was one of the foot soldiers of the movement, as were many of the other students at the Lincoln School in Marion.
We were in the midst of getting folks registered to vote, and at the same time we were doing civil protests. Nonviolent protests in regards to some civil rights that were being denied.
Orange had been arrested during a recent demonstration and had been taken to the old Perry County Jail.
Word had gotten out that they were going to kill him, and so, you just wanted some people to be around. And once we got out, that's when the police came from around the courthouse and wherever else they were. So that was the first thing I noticed was how many of them it was.
Maynor says the marchers ran for cover after being attacked by state troopers.
We dispersed once they charged us. We went to familiar places. For me, it was Mac's Cafe, which is right behind the church here. There's Cajun Lee sitting at the front door. And then there's Jimmy coming in. And so they already struggling. They fought back out the door. And then you hear the gunshot.
Jimmy Lee Jackson died at Good Samaritan Hospital in Selma 8 days later. And that's when civil rights leader James Bevel suggested that Jackson's body be taken to Montgomery and placed on the Capitol steps for Governor George Wallace to see.
I was in grade school when people bravely marched across that bridge, but I didn't really understand the magnitude of it, and I never really understood why it happened. Why were those marches taking place?
Mary Sullivan of Elk Grove Village, Illinois, is on a quest for knowledge to help her deal with the racist attitudes she sees resurfacing around the country and in her own family. On this day, her journey brought her here to Marion, Alabama.
I'm trying to understand what underlies all the hatred so that I can find some common ground and a way to talk with family and acquaintances who, are racist.
And that's the very thing the civil rights movement was fighting against. And no one in Perry County fought the good fight harder than Albert Turner Sr.
He made people understand that life doesn't have to be the way it is here in Marion, Alabama. We have certain rights, and we have the right to make sure that it happens. He was just an inspiration all the way around. And it didn't take much for us to follow him. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of the people on that bridge with Albert and John Lewis that fateful day were people from Marion, Alabama. That was the Bloody Sunday March. The vast majority on the front line was Albert's folks. That's Marion. My brother was one of them.
It was very important for us to know that my dad was out trying to make this world a better place. We knew that.
Nobody ever taught me what was going on. Maybe my parents didn't understand it themselves. Maybe our teachers didn't understand it. Maybe when I got to high school, they didn't know how to talk about it. All I know is that I'm 71 years old, and I'm just now reading that history and learning it, and I want to stand in the place where it happened.
Marion was key to the 1965 Voting Rights Act being passed. You don't get to Selma, you don't get to the Edmonds-Pettus Bridge unless you come to Perry County, to Marion, Alabama.
Reporting from Marion, George McDonald, Alabama News Network.
Thanks, George. Perry County's ties to voting rights movement run even deeper than all of that. Dr. Martin Luther King's wife, Coretta, and Andrew Young's wife, Jean, are both natives of Perry County. Coming up later in our special, you'll meet a nurse who helped treat Jimmy Lee Jackson at Good Samaritan Hospital in Selma. She's now 86 years old. You won't want to miss her stories of what happened as he was treated and eventually died. And throughout the special, we want to hear from special thoughts from those from the local area who witnessed history and are doing their part in making history today. Here's their perspective.
My name is Anthony Brock. I am the founder and head of School of Valiant Cross Academy in Montgomery, Alabama. We are an all-male 6th through 10th grade and eventually 6th through 12th grade school. We provide a high-quality education where we're giving a lot of love and a lot of exposure to our young men. And I believe all of us are where we are because of other people not giving up on us throughout the way and pouring into us layer upon layer of love. And so I just feel an obligation to continue to give back to young people and never give up on them, never allow them to hold their head down, giving them a good posture and a positive outlook on life. So that's just what I'm called to do. It's just natural to me. I would say without a doubt that my parents have the biggest influence on my life. I just know the love and the passion they have for what they're doing, and it's never a place here in Montgomery that I can't go. Somebody say they know the work that my father's done or my mother's done with them, and that's really inspiring me to keep going on to create a legacy here in Montgomery.
My name is Michelle Browder, and I am the founder of I Am More Than, a youth organization here in Montgomery, Alabama. And I am the owner of More Than Tours, a social business that gives tours to people that are visiting our beautiful city. I got my desire and passion to work with others from growing up in the South. One of the people that I stand on the shoulders of every day is Georgia Gilmore, and she was a woman who was very instrumental in helping to fund the civil rights movement through her culinary art skills. What keeps me motivated and it's the resiliency of the women of the civil rights movement. It's the narratives of these people who, although they were faced with difficult times, they managed to get through it. They managed to change some laws. The most important impression I would like to leave with others is that you should always speak truth to power when the opportunity presents itself. Do it respectfully and lovingly.
I'm Kevin King. I'm founder and executive director of the King's Canvas Gallery and Studio. I started the King's Canvas because I wanted to provide opportunity and access for people who would be considered on the margins of society. I wanted to kind of be that go-between that would merge a community that's forgotten about with the opportunity and access that's readily available to any other visual artist or any type of artist out there. My wife is a source of inspiration because without her buying me those art supplies in 2013 and said, Kevin, you need to create, I don't believe that I would have been here where I am now telling others, you need to create. One of the most important things that I would love to leave others is understanding the God that we serve created us. He created us to create. Because of that, we have dignity, we have value. And I want people to see the value within themselves that God has placed inside of them.
Well, we will hear more from local folks throughout the special. Coming up, meet a Montgomery man who was able to trace his family roots back to the time of slavery. Find out what he's learned as he's taken his family through the journey back through time. And later, meet a retired nurse who treated Jimmy Lee Jackson after he was shot during a voting rights protest in Marion and was rushed to Selma for treatment.
Now, continuing coverage.
Now the very personal story of a Montgomery man who decided to trace his own family's history through the generations. His family's story stretches from the time of slavery through the legacy of college graduates and educators. Reporter Jerome Jones shares his story.
When Charles Everett IV began writing a letter to his children, it took him down a path that would lead to a published book. My Father's Name captures Everett's journey to trace his family roots.
I wanted them to be able to celebrate their family's journey from enslavement to liberation.
He was able to trace his family all the way back to the first documented relative, a slave in North Carolina listed only as Charles, who escaped slavery to join the Union Army. The man took the name of his owners upon his freedom, Charles Patterson Everett.
Not only did he not want to be in subjugation to any man, but he wanted to make sure that his freedom was sealed. He chose the name Charles Patterson after his first owner, Isaac Patterson, and Everett after John Everett, his last slave owner.
Charles Patterson Everett would marry Mary Ann Wiggins in 1865, and the couple instilled the importance of education into their children. A legacy of education was to follow.
Charles Everett Jr. graduated from Hampton Institute, and since then there has been a Charles Everett to graduate from college continuously. So I see it as a breaking of a cycle of illiteracy and poverty through education.
Charles Everett Jr. would relocate to Alabama in 1896 to work with Miss Georgia Washington in Mount Meigs, Alabama. From there, each generation of Everetts to this day have went on to work in education.
The child is father to the man. So what we become is influenced by what we were as children and how we were nurtured. So it's important to know who the nurturers were.
In Montgomery, Jerome Jones, Alabama News Network.
C.P. Everett IV says there have been 6 generations in his family to work as educators. Mr. Everett may look familiar to you because we have had interviewed him many times over the years. He's leading the efforts to save the old Mount Zion AME Zion Church in Montgomery, which is key landmark to the civil rights movement. Now we have another selection of community leaders sharing their memories with us.
My name is Henry Tellis, born and raised here in Montgomery, Alabama. I teach during the day. I teach government, economics, and AP US history at Sid Lanier High School. Then I leave my job at Sid Lanier and I continue to run my foundation, my nonprofit throughout the city to impact young people's lives. I said when I was younger, when my time came, after playing the NFL and doing well in that I would give back to the community. So my passion and desire comes from just wanting to see people around me successful. And no matter what is going on in your life, no matter what the circumstance you're dealing with that time period, is that you can overcome those things and that you have control over those things and that you don't allow circumstances to stop you from being successful in life. But I think the one thing I want people to always remember that I never gave up. And not only did I not give up, I want to encourage everybody around me now to remember where I went through, that they can overcome those things too. So I say, no one thing that I want to leave is that you can do anything and that no one can stop you but you.
My name is Cassandra Brown, and I am the president of the Montgomery Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. It is my desire to always help someone along the way. I've been taught each one reach and bring one along. So I've just used that throughout my life, and that's very important to me. I consider myself as a public servant, and any way that I can help my fellow man, that is what I think that I'm here for. I think that that is really my purpose in life, is to help others. So I have a strong desire and passion, and I just don't see that going anywhere. So that is just a part of me. The most important impression that I would like to leave is my absolute confidence in my ability to make a difference and my desire to never stop making a difference.
Still to come, a retired nurse in Selma remembers the role she played in a pivotal moment of the civil rights movement. She was one of the people who treated Jimmy Lee Jackson after he was shot in a voting rights protest in Marion. What does she remember about that time in 1965?
Now, continuing coverage.
As we heard earlier, the death of Jimmy Lee Jackson inspired the historic Selma to Montgomery marches of 1965. He was shot during a voting rights protest in Marion and died 8 days later at Good Samaritan Hospital in Selma. We sat down with one of the nurses who cared for Jackson. Reporter George McDonald has more.
85-year-old Vera Jenkins Booker worked at Good Samaritan Hospital during the voting rights struggle of the 60s.
I was the 11 to 7 supervisor for 7.5 years at the Good Samaritan Hospital, and I was there in 1965.
Booker says Jimmy Lee Jackson was the only patient to come to the hospital on the night he came. She found out later he was brought in by Albert Turner Sr.
I saw the blood, and I pulled up his shirt, and there was a hole on the left side of his abdomen where the intestine had come out, about the size of a medium grapefruit.
She says Jackson had surgery that night and seemed well for a time, then suddenly took a turn for the worse and died after a second surgery. Booker says she helped take care of Jackson and talked with him during his time in the hospital until he died.
He told me all about being in service, how he had worked, but he was working in Marion, doing all he could to get all the blacks, everybody he could, to vote.
His death sparked the idea for the Selma to Montgomery March. State troopers attacked marchers during one of the march attempts, a day now known as Bloody Sunday. Booker says she was called in to work that day to help with the turmoil.
You talking about chaos, chaos, chaos it was.
Booker says Jimmy Lee Jackson has been in her thoughts during monumental voting rights moments, like the signing of the Voting Rights Act and the election of former President Barack Obama.
I feel like his death was not in vain.
Reporting from Selma, George McDonald, Alabama News Network.
Good Samaritan Hospital was the only hospital in Selma for black people during the 60s. The historic building now sits in disrepair and is very close to the tornado damage from the year earlier. Now, our final collection of civil rights memories from community leaders.
I'm Dr. Rosa Bell. I'm a board-certified neurologist, epileptologist, and clinical neurophysiologist. One of the things that I have great interest in is concussion and brain trauma. I have a patent-published technology where I assess concussions objectively, and I think that this is going to help tremendously, especially in contact sports and persons with traumatic brain injury. I really feel as though my work that I do in neurology is going to save a lot of lives, and I want others, particularly young African American women, to see that if you have that desire and put toward the work and don't give up, you can accomplish any goal. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. Stay away from negative energy, and that 10% of life is what happens to you, 90% is how you react to it.
I'm Fred Gray. I was born in Montgomery, Alabama, December the 14th, 1930. When I saw the problems that we were having on the buses in Montgomery, and my mother had already told the 5 of us that we could be whatever we want to be, and when I saw what Mr. Nixon was trying to do, and how he was doing everything he could to bring about equality for African Americans. So that encouraged me to try to join him in doing what I could do to help solve the problems that we had. And that motivated me, plus what my mother had told me, plus my religious faith, all contributed toward me becoming a civil rights lawyer and doing what I could to destroy segregation.
My name is Catherine Coleman Flowers. I'm the Rural Development Manager for the Equal Justice Initiative, and I'm also the founder of the Center for Rural Enterprise and Environmental Justice. One of the things that I like for others to see in me is that I like the fact that I'm from the country. There's certain values that we get in rural America that I think that are exemplary of what it means to be neighborly. My passion to work with others came from my parents, who were also passionate about helping people in our community, our neighbors, our family, our friends. Since I've become a parent, I'm influenced by trying to leave a legacy for my child and my grandchild. And I'm really trying to make sure that I leave behind a better world for him and 7 generations to come. I think that we should all apply the golden rule and do unto others as we would have them do unto us.
Thank you for watching Making History Today as we honor Black History Month here on WAKA and our Alabama News Network family of stations. I'm Daryl Hood. Enjoy the rest of your day.